us, Fred Holston. Thank goodness. He's still around and was honored recently. And a little incident, as I said, the township, we're now on the 911 emergency service. So the township had to change some numbers of houses. And came home from vacation one day, and I'm no longer 1074 Kingston Lane. Suddenly the mailbox said 19, and I wondered whether I was in the right house. But when I called somebody in the township, they said, oh yes, we are now part of 911 emergency service and had to change house numbers so that they would be accessible to the first aid squad. Okay, we'll do that too. Area codes, telephone numbers have changed 3 times. This is the 3rd, isn't it? Yeah. I still remember some telephone numbers, some old telephone numbers. When I first came out, the telephone number, my in-law's telephone number was Monmouth Junction 7 5551. Walter's uncle, Mr. Sitchell, had Monmouth Junction 7 4441. The Schwartz Brothers Garage, their number was Monmouth Junction 7 3331. And the only one that still remains is, it's not Monmouth Junction 7 6661 anymore. It is now 329 6661. And that telephone number belongs to Millie and Dave Cutler. And that one is still in existence.
I just want to share my first memory of a telephone number. Ours was 130. That was before dial.
Before dial.
Before dial.
That's wonderful. That's great. Now the teachers in the township too. The memories of those, my children's teachers. Mrs. Curran, who has also done the history of, or started a history of South Brunswick. A wonderful teacher. Strict as all get out. Make the kids walk home and walk home to get library books if they forgot them. But the lessons were well learned. You know, as I said, South Brunswick, Monmouth Junction, has a special flavor to it somehow. The farmers that came in, poultry farmers, the potato farmers, some of them still here. Of course, because times changed, as Walt said, we had to give up the poultry, and we were then in business. But good times.
We had churches and we had principals of schools that formed scout troops.
Oh yes, yeah.
So we had it all.
I know that Dave Cutleroff was a scout leader. Les Seidenstein was a 4-H leader for many, many, many years. Mrs. Singer, she was a Dvorak. She, on Dean's Road Hall Road, was a 4-H leader for the girls for many years. And our county fair, although basically it was located in East Brunswick for many years, but Middlesex County was a tremendous factor in it. Les Seidenstein started the dunking stool at the fair. Oh yes, and he was the donkey. I mean, he sat on that platform and he was dunked. I mean, I know Edith used to be quite upset at times, you know. And so to the skin, poor guy. But he came with his 4-H group, and they made a lot of money for 4-H. Yeah, he initiated that. They still do it.
Yeah.
They still do it today. So we Girl Scouts. I don't know who did Girl Scouts. Then of course Boy Scouts. A lot of it was taken over by Reverend Morphy, who did a tremendous amount and still does with Boy Scouts. We had a lot of Eagle Scouts came out of this area. So many things, you know.
David Cutlerell shared that evidently Gordon Poinsett,
Yes.
principal
Okay, yes.
of Dayton School,
Yeah.
saw the need for a scout trip.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
probably all the fathers helped him get that off the ground. So I don't know whether that was the first. I don't know. I really don't know.
You know what else we
It was
supported?
domineering in the area, the one Dayton.
When the Jewish Farmers Community Center was formed, we had one member whose daughter had polio. And I know that the ladies auxiliary of the center supported the polio hospital with loads of card parties. We sold advertising on card tables for it. And we still have one or two of those left somewhere. And everybody bought an ad on these card tables. It was filled with ads. And everybody bought one. In the township, be it Weber's, be it, you know, small people, insurance, I don't care who it was. Everyone did.
All the emergency.
Yeah. And it was, you know, it just goes to show what this township is. It still is.
Were there card tables left at the
Firehouse.
firehouse?
I saw, I don't know how many
Well,
years
there would
ago,
be something
but I
Kathy
saw those,
probably
yeah, I saw
would
those
like,
card tables years ago at the firehouse. They were brown, and they had white writing on it.
Right.
Yeah,
And hopefully there may be one around somewhere
yeah.
that she would like.
I remember seeing my father's name on here,
Of
advertising.
course,
Yeah.
yeah. He had it on our tables, I know that, on the ones from the center that supported the polio hospital. You know, we had a bus that came through here when I first was going out with Walt.
Quaker City.
The Quaker City bus from 41st Street to Philadelphia came through Dean's, stopped at the corner of Kingston Lane, where now is Pierre's. It used to be Young's grocery store, and I would get off the bus and walk up to the farm.
You're wrong.
What?
It's down at the bungalow.
The bungalow, a little bit further?
At this side. Down the corner.
Oh, yeah, all right. Well, it was just beyond Young's store. But it was funny. I mean, I met all kinds of people on the bus, but I was very young and very naive, and people were saying they were going to visit people in Bordentown. I later found out that it was at the penitentiary. And at the high holiday season for Jews, before Rosh Hashanah, the bus stopped in Dean's, where Dean's Road, Hall Road intersects with George's Road to the cemeteries, and they would walk across down the short Dean's Road, Hall Road, and across Route 130 to the cemetery. Route 130 had just been built, actually, when I first started coming out in 1948.
The new stretch.
The new stretch had just been put in. And I also watched a house, two houses. One house was being renovated on Route 130, and it was made to look like a barn. And many years later, not too many years later, that house, or one other house, was moved onto Kingston Lane. And the gentleman who is, pardon?
3 houses.
2.
Mr.
No, Murphy's and
Mr. Nevins moved the house in alongside of us.
Oh, that's a small, no, that was,
Was that
okay,
from
that
there?
was a bungalow. No, that was something
Came
else.
out of North Brunswick.
That came out
Okay.
of North Brunswick.
All right.
There were 2 houses, and the one house is the house that the gentleman who's taken this movie lived in.
Yeah.
But I had watched that house being renovated to look like a barn.
Mm-hmm.
The house that Kiki just spoke about was a bungalow that was built during the war in New Brunswick for, what was it built for? Military,
No.
wasn't it? What
It
were
was
they built for?
emergency living quarters for housing, for,
What kind of people though?
I think veterans.
Veterans,
Probably
that's what I
veterans, yeah.
said, military people. And after the war they were sold. And we bought one, and I know Nevins bought one, for the help on the farm. That was what that house was.
Many farmers use it for help.
We used it for help for the farm.
Now that I've interrupted you,
That's right.
you can mention where those two homes are on Kingston Lane.
Oh, the two houses that I said were moved, one of them now, the one that, as I said, was built, made to look like a barn, is now the manse for the St. Celia's Church. And the other house is the house of, was the house of Tom and Lillian Murphy, whose children also grew up with my children, so.
They were moved when the railroad took possession of that land on Route 130 at the time.
It's quite a feat in
So-
those days, actually, to move those, because
Yes.
they were big houses.
Sure,
That's
you
interesting.
remember when the library came to South Brunswick,
The library came to South Brunswick,
fixed a nice spot.
Municipal building.
picked the spot in the municipal building. Yeah, we have
Kind of
all
the
these
center,
good things.
the hub.
Now we have a senior center, which is very active. Where the dumps was on New Road, we have playing fields and recreation areas, which are wonderful and used by everybody. You have to make, you've got to make an appointment to use the tennis courts. We have everything.
The only thing we don't have is trains anymore.
That we don't have. Yeah, that we
Trains go
miss.
by.
Yeah.
That is true. That we miss. We talk about it often. We could come to right to Monmouth Junction with the train from Penn Station, and now we can't do that anymore. We have to go to New Brunswick or to North Brunswick or wherever. We have a park and ride station. We can go by bus. But that too has become oversubscribed.
Mm-hmm.
Need was there.
We have a big post office.
Parking problems.
We
We lost one post office indeed.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. They were incorporated into Monmouth Junction. The last, actually, Weber's, the last, was the last long-time retail store is now gone. That was Weber's TV.
If you have to fess, women shared a clock that they had, that Tony took pictures of, that they had bought from Mr. Weber. He sold clocks there. I don't know.
Oh.
Yeah.
What
He's a-
else is there?
Before the
yeah,
appliances.
Before the appliances, yeah.
Before the
the
appliances.
He's a
yes.
watch repairer.
Yeah.
So there is some rebuilding on the history, and that's, you've done a great job.
You had Ericsson's store in Dayton, which is
Mhm.
no longer. And you had,
At
who
Erickson's
was it?
grocery store, we had Young
Lasso's.
Ford.
in,
Latsos.
Lasso's, no,
The one
in Dean's.
Oh, Dean's. Gombas.
Charlie Gomber.
Gombas. That's it.
Charlie's.
That's when we didn't have to go to New Brunswick anymore. We had Kish's in Monmouth
Monmouth
Junction.
Junction.
And now it's kind of back again. We're traveling, Grand Union's close and.
They have Jack's over here.
Jack's, Quickies, yes.
But it's not the same because you met all your neighbors.
And they were the kind of stores you sat around in too. You don't do that
Everyone
anymore.
did.
Yeah.
So was Charlie the barber.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Right.
yes. No one's mentioned that.
Yeah.
We
That's
have to
right.
find out how
Yeah.
long.
He was the meeting place,
Yeah.
all the gossip.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody went to Charlie the Barber.
And he could get the gossip out of you too. He'd question you. You sit in that chair and he'd question you.
I know my nephews, when Walt's sister, that's the other thing that happened in the township. A lot of marriages of people in the township, and amazingly enough, even the Jewish people, and there were not that many, got together and married. You had a Bertie Oppenheimer who met her husband, Murray Siegel, who lived on Davidson Mill Road, and they got married and lived in Dayton for a while. Unfortunately and sadly, Bertie died very young of cancer, but they met here. My sister-in-law, Walt's sister, met her husband in the township. The Weintraubs had a farm on Major Road. And Francie Weintraub and Francie Rosenstock and Jack Weintraub got married. Walter's cousin, Ruth Rosenstock, came out from Newark to visit and met Max Horlick on Davidson Mill Road, and they got married, okay? All these kind of good things. George Siegel met his wife, Helen Steinberg, and they were married. Where did Dave come from? Dave and Millie.
But you have this
Yeah.
throughout the township.
Right.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Local people married.
But I'm just saying the local people that got married, and anybody who would come into the township. Later on, we had, originally, of course, we did not have rabbis at the center. We had the lay services. But once the rabbis came in, I always said, you have to be very careful who you talk about. Because a lot of people here are related. You know, you have to be careful. So that was the interesting part, because people came out to the farm. They wanted to see how people lived on the farm from the city, because a lot of them had been city people. I had one visitor once that looked for the outhouse. So I said,
Indoor plumbing.
we have indoor plumbing, but that's quite all right, They thought we were still living back in the dark ages.
There were probably a few outhouses when you came here.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure there were.
People retained some of those,
Yeah.
despite what they had inside.
Right. Yeah.
Curiosities, I guess. Yeah, no, by the time.
But a good local meeting place was the post office in Mount Johnson. And the railroad stopped there, and Kip Emmons had the store, and then the post office.
I can remember the post office on Hillside.
Hillside Avenue,
yeah.
yes.
Mrs.
That was
Lester.
Lester.
Yeah.
Mrs. List on Hillside Avenue, that was the first one. And then it went to Emmons on the other road.
Really close to the post office.
I think we go back farther.
There's one more Pearson or somebody. Who didn't
Pearson used to bring the
bring?
mail from the train.
Oh, okay. Is that what it was?
Remember, Audrey Marinsky and I, Audrey Van Sice Marinsky and I, every night went to the post office for the soldiers' mail, servicemen's mail, because Mrs. Lester kept the post office open just to make sure if there was a letter there in the bag after the 7 o'clock mail, that you had it. And that's the kind of people, I remember in this town.
When the second post, as I said, the post office that Emmons had was the store, the country store, that was beside the railroad tracks, which you saw throughout. If you look at history throughout the United States, and you see that there's a railroad track, and there's always the store right there, and that was, the Emmons store, then became the post office.
with the old creaky wood floor.
Yes.
Yeah, they just thought you were gonna fall
The
asleep.
old pickle barrel,
Yeah.
the old
But it was,
sauerkraut barrel.
What happened to Audrey? Talking about Audrey.
Audrey Marinsky,
Yeah.
who lives still in Dayton,
Oh,
and
And
there's
then
her grandchildren.
She retired from the
she went
school.
to school with me.
Audrey Marinsky.
Did she retire? Or is she still working?
Then if she went to school with you, I went to school with you, because Audrey and I went from 42 to 46.
Oh, I was gone, 41.
It may have, it was Audrey Van Sykes, it may have been Everett.
the little post office in Dean's was a tiny house. The postmistress,
Mrs. Henler.
Miss Himmler. Miss Himmler. And that was, felt sorry when that closed somehow. It was an era that was gone.
Same as our church being replaced.
You say Miss St. Cecilia? Yeah.